Good evening and welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and tonight's special guest, former Newcastle United #1 goalkeeper, Martin Thomas. How are you, Martin?
Yeah, all good, Steve. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. I just thought after last week's show when we had Kevin Carr on and he was mentioning you, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give Martin a bell, see if he fancies coming on. So thanks very much for coming on, mate. Great to see you again. You're looking well.
Feeling good. It's great to see Carsey last week as well.
Yeah, he was on
good memory.
He was on top form. So as always on these shows, we're going to have questions coming in from the general public. Colin Wilson's joined us there. Evening, Colin. Look, let's talk about how you first arrived at Newcastle, Martin. How did the journey come about? Who rang you? Who got you up to the club?
Okay, well, I joined in '83. I actually thought it was going to happen a lot sooner. When I was at Bristol Rovers, which would have been sort of late 70s, I was in the first team there in 77 to sort of 80. But in about 78, 79, Bill Dodgin was sort of general manager stroke chief scout. And he was a Geordie. Bill, I think he's born in Gateshead. And he'd mentioned to me a couple of times about Newcastle showing an interest and that they'd been to games. And it just happened, played against Newcastle a few times in sort of 78, 79, 80, that sort of era. Would have been around about Christmas time, 82. And I'd heard a couple of rumours that there might have been an interest. And I joined in March, I think it was March 83.
Wow. Excellent. Who was the manager at the time, Martin?
I was Arthur.
Cockney.
Yeah, Cockney. Yeah. So I joined on loan initially till the end of the season. Did the Japan, played in the Japan Cup, and then signed during the summer.
And that's 2 weeks in a row now. I can celebrate the Japan Cup, and you know what? A Newcastle United fan, that's the one thing I because there was a lot of Liverpool fans at school, Martin, all celebrating European Cups and leagues. But I said, we won the Japan Cup. Nobody else.
It was brilliant, like, for me, because, coming from Bristol Rovers, where, we were small clubs, small crowds, all of a sudden coming to Newcastle, which was absolutely massive. And they said, look, if you sign till the end of the season, and then we are going away, so because it was the March, you need to have all your jabs. So I said, oh, where are we going? They said, oh, we're going to Malaysia, we're going to Thailand, and we're going to Japan. So absolutely top draw. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And you can always say you were big in Japan, Martin.
Yeah. It was, what an experience. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll come to my questions as and when, but I do like to make it an interactive show and let people have this here. Colin Wilson's asked the first question. He says, hi, Martin. Nice to see you again. What are your recollections of the infamous 8?
Yeah. Well, I'd actually been ruled out for the season. And because I dislocated my shoulder. And at the time, I think Dave McKellar had been signed. Gary Kelly was fit. And I got to the stage where, because I was out for the season, Willie'd even said to me about, look, if you want to come in for treatment on afternoons, rather than come in every morning, just because it was a nightmare, having to go in every morning and seeing the lads train. And he said, oh, come in on afternoons or whatever. And then he said to me, oh, we got a double fixture in London. He said, would you like to come for the 2 games? So I said, oh, that'd be great. So we played Chelsea on the Saturday, and then we were playing West Ham on the Monday. Dave McKellar was going to play. Derek Wright said to me, look, just take your gloves and we can do some real light work down there. And basically that's why I went, just to have a few days away with the team. And then Dave, unfortunately, did his groin at Chelsea and was ruled out. We applied to get another goalkeeper, but because West Ham were going for the title, they said you couldn't have one. Gary was injured and we didn't have any other goalkeeper. And Willie said, well, how do you feel? And I said, well, I've done nothing, for, I think it was about 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks. And he said, do you think you'll be able to play? And I said, well, I'll give it a go, but obviously I haven't done anything. I just hope we don't have a reoccurrence. And ironically, in the first half, I went down to my right-hand side, took my weight through my shoulder, and unfortunately it popped again. And of course, that's when Chris Edworth ended up in goal, and Pedro ended up in goal, and it was and of course Alvin scores 3. And I used to, when I obviously working for the FA, I'd see Alvin on my travels because both boys played in the England youth teams. So I used to see Alvin every time. We used to have a chuckle over it because, score 3 against 3 different goalies. But
it's a great pub quiz question, of course. I mean, with injured, and then Peter Beardsley go in. And I was at an event with Peter last year, and someone had brought the picture along of Peter with the gloves on and the goalkeeping strip on to get it signed. Right. Fantastic picture, just not a great memory of a night down at West Ham. It was bad enough.
We had our revenge, thankfully, the following season. They came to us. I don't know whether you remember the game, which was live on the big match. I think I think they were hoping for another 8, I think. But funny how, obviously results can, 12-goal turnaround, from an 8-0 or an 8-1 defeat to a 4-0 comfortable win,
Yeah, it was a fantastic game that, and as you say, it was live on TV. I know Mark Corby, who runs a fantastic Facebook page looking at your era, the time that you played, and he's got a YouTube channel. He's the one who puts a lot of the clips and stuff up on YouTube, and it's absolutely fantastic. To go back to that, that time and that era was wonderful, especially when, as a fan, that was my early days as a Newcastle fan. But yeah, Colin, that was a great question, mate. Not the greatest of nights for Newcastle, but certainly one that a lot of people still remember and talk about to this day. Terry Ross, he says, good evening, guys. Great to see Martin Thomas over the years. We've had some great Welsh players. They've all put in a shift. Dave Penny says, managed to get in the players' bar before Keegan's last game against Brighton. A memorable day, and Martin was an absolute gent.
I spent a bit of time that season in the players' bar because obviously, although Kazi started the season he broke his elbow, so I had a good run in the team up until sort of January. Yeah. And there was no sub goalies then, so I played for the reserves in the week, and come a Saturday, it'd be a case of just watching the boys stroll to promotion, But
Jason says, good evening from Stuttgart in Germany. Great to see another great ex-player on the channel, which is nice. Thank you very much, mate. And I'm sure Martin appreciates that. Yeah, you arrived, as you say, in '83, and I mean, what a time to come to our football club. You know what I mean? With Keegan there, what was it? What was the atmosphere around the club like, Martin?
It was unbelievable. Kevin obviously joined in the August '82. Would that be right?
Yeah.
And I think it was everybody's favorite team, wasn't it? Our favorite second team, because with Kevin and we can all remember the QPR game, and and when the opportunity came, to obviously sign for the club, I'm going from playing in front of 5,000-6,000 people at Bristol Rovers to all of a sudden joining the club with fantastic. Probably the most ardent support, I think, of any club in the country, because, through the late 70s, they'd had a difficult period, but once Kevin had come to the club, it was just take off, and just to be part of that. So the crowd, but I played at St. James's 2 or 3 times before that. And when I was at Rovers, and we got turned over as well 2 or 3 times. Yeah, 3 goals on a couple of occasions, I think. So I knew what it was like there, and I just couldn't wait. It was what an opportunity, and went on and played 130, 140 games, I think, with League and Cup. So no, it was a brilliant time and best time of my career, definitely.
Jason says, who is Martin's favourite Welsh player for Newcastle since he hung up his boots?
Oh, favourite Welsh player for Newcastle? See up.
Gary Speed's got to be in there. I mean,
I think in terms of guys, in terms of his sort of longevity, I would say Gary would be the one who probably played at the highest level for the greatest length of time. I would think it would be Gary would be probably the top player.
Yeah, definitely. John Justice Allen says, Martin, Chris Waddle was a young member of the 83-84 squad. I remember him getting a lot of stick from certain sections of the crowd. Did the players in the squad recognise his special talent and see his potential?
Yeah, and I have to say he had fantastic ability, and it was, I think, sometimes just his body language, because he was just sort of a languid, just the way he walked, the way he ran, how easy he was on the ball. But it's probably his biggest critic, and I think Waddler would say actually was the best thing that ever happened to him, and that was Arthur.
Yeah.
Coxey was so strict with him and was on at him all the time, because Arthur knew how good he was. And I think all Arthur wanted was for Chris to actually reach his potential. And he was an absolutely fantastic player. But as a young kid, he had playing for Towlaw and then coming in, into Newcastle's team, probably not the easiest time. But of course, once he got up front with Kevin and Pedro, they were what a three.
Yeah, fantastic. We did the event, as I was mentioning, the off air last year with Keegan, Waddle, Beardsley, and Terry Mack there, and Chris Waddle told a fantastic story about. He was playing in a reserve game at St James's Park in the old days when they used to play in the Pontins League, and all the games used to be played at St James's Park. They were quite competitive. And he says, obviously, there's nobody there. And he says he just about get onto the pitch and start getting ready to warm up before the kickoff. And when he heard a voice, and he said it was Arthur Cox. And he was sitting in the stand. He couldn't see him. He said he used to do this all the time. He would pick a different seat and he would go and sit in the stand. And he took him off. He told him to change his boots, I think it was. And he said, well, but we're just about to kick up. I don't care. Go and, go and change his boots. The game kicked off when Newcastle started with 10 men. And he went off. He said he was, and he understood why he was doing it, but he says at the time, he says he hated me. He says he didn't. Chris has still got it in his mind even to this day. So you're right, 100%.
Yeah, I think Coxey's attitude would be the days he sort of ends sort of the discussions with you is the day he gives up on you.
Yeah,
he was. I have to say, Coxey was just so honest. Just whatever he said, there was no grey areas.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's all you want in terms of, from a manager, just to say it as it is, and Chris came through that, and lucky he did, because what a waste, if he hadn't have achieved what he achieved, but he was a fantastic player.
Lee Foster says, if you missed the lineups over the tannoy, you'd be hard pressed to know if it was Martin or Did that ever work in your favour, away from the game? Did you ever manage to take advantage of maybe he's looking like Kevin Carr?
No, there was Kazi was a touch taller than me. He could kick a ball into next week. He was a far better distributor of the ball than me, and obviously being left-footed. But we did have a couple of photographs taken for the football annuals and the shoot, the match, and whatever. Because we did resemble one another, just with the long dark mullet and the tashes, although the accents were slightly different, shall we say.
Brilliant. Jason Carter, who asked the question about Welsh players, he says it has to be Gary Speed for me. Craig was a canny player too, but let's forget Ian Rush. player. We just got him at the wrong time.
Yeah, fortunately, I'm the same age as Rushy, so we played in the under 21s, and obviously I was part of the senior squad as well when Rushy was there. But yeah, I don't think probably Rushy's time at Liverpool. Yeah, I get it, but probably, as you say, the wrong time. And Bella's, when I first went into coaching, one of my first jobs was working at Norwich City. So I used to go there and work with Brian Gunn and Andy Marshall, and Bella's was a young kid. And I remember the youth development officer saying to me one day, he said, "Oh, see the young lad over there?" He said, "He's from Cardiff." So I said, "Oh, I'll try and catch up with him later." So when we finished, I caught up with him and we were just having a chat. And I said, "Look, I'm from near Cardiff and whatever." And it's quite ironic because in 2012, I was part of the Olympics, and Bella's was, of course, one of the players in the squad. So, I sort of top and tailed his career, really, met him at the beginning and obviously worked with him then for the Olympics.
Yeah, good stuff. Les Lumsden says, Waddle, I used to drink in the Bugle on the Leam, a cracking player and a cracking pub. He also says, Joycey asked me to say hello to you. Hi, pass on me best, please do. Tom Dixon says, Martin, did you play with Brian Tinnion? I've just heard that he's helping out with Bristol City now. Did you play with Brian?
I did. And in fact, I don't know, he played in goal for Newcastle.
Right.
Okay. When we, after the West Ham incident, the following season, I had surgery, it came back. But then at the beginning of the following season, we played Blackpool at home. I don't know, I think we won about 3 or 4-1 in the League Cup. And Gaza definitely played, because I remember Gaza scoring. I probably need to look through the record book. I think it was 3-1, 4-1. But I actually dislocated my shoulder again, and that's when I was out for the 15 months. And Tin went in goal. And I remember him saying that he'd never played in goal before, but he was absolutely crap in it. Because I was taken off, I think must have been the first half down the Gallagate end. So he had to play half a game at the Leazes end. Yeah.
Wow. What was the score in that game?
I think it was 3-1, 4-1, League Cup, or whatever they call the League Cup then, Carling Cup or
Rumbelows, Milk
Rumbelows or Littlewood or Milk. Could have even been the Milk Cup.
Yeah.
But, so Tin played in goal. And then he obviously went to Bristol City, had a good career. And I did catch up with him because part of my role at the FA, I would go and watch games, obviously, over at Bristol City. And yeah, I'd see him there. Yeah. Great left peg, by the way.
Fantastic. Yeah, good player. Underrated. Probably we did a series on this last week or the week before. We got asked the question, most underrated. And I forgot about Brian Tinnion. He could probably be added to the list. Dan Milne says, does Mark think signing Gareth Bale would be a good marquee signing for Newcastle should the dreaded T word go through? And of course,
Takeover. Yeah.
For those who don't know what the dreaded T word is,
yeah, it's
mentioned.
Yeah, Gareth's an outstanding player, and I think whoever does take him, if he does sort of come back, he is going to be an asset. But it's going to be quite juicy, I think, to be able to tempt him in terms of a package. But outstanding footballer, and it would be great for the club to get someone of that ilk,
We've still got Eldon Square, Martin. So if you've got an insight to him, tell his last. There's Eldon Square in the Metro Centre up here.
I'll enjoy that.
John Allen says all goalkeepers should have to have a cracking tash. I'm sure you would endorse that, Martin.
Yeah, it was the time when it was. I didn't have the mullet and the curly perm, but unfortunately, I did have the tash.
Robbie Johnson says, Steve, do you believe what Gorilla Gloves has to say about the takeover happening on Friday? I've seen the comment, Robbie. It's in amongst a badly written blog by Richard. Yes, I've seen it. Would I believe it? No. I would believe it when it happens. As we've said all along, I've always said I do feel this takeover will take place. It'll just be a case of when all the dust is settled, all the boxes have been ticked, and everybody's happy. And it's as simple as that. No one knows the answer as to when it's going to happen. Even if the Premier League says yes, then there still has to be an exchange of funds, etc. That's going to drag on. So look, it'll happen when it happens. But just take it from me, I feel that Mike Ashley's silence certainly says a lot. It speaks volumes. It's definitely a genuine takeover. This Tom Dixon says, Martin, did you play with Glenn Roeder? You did. What was Glenn Roeder like, Martin?
Yeah, Glenn read the game really well. He didn't have a lot of pace, but his actual positioning made up for that. Very cultured. Obviously, when he used to come out, I think in today's game, he would be absolutely awesome as a centre-back, because in possession, when he used to come out with it, he used to do the step over. Everyone knew what he was going to do, but it still always came off. He was a great leader. One of the problems and it's a football problem really, was Glenn was used to, prior to coming to us, he'd worked with Terry Venables, and they like to show inside in the defending third. Mm-hmm. And when you do show inside, what it does mean is then they can play balls down the sides of the centre backs.
Right.
And I don't think Clarkey liked it, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because what he didn't want is balls slipped down the sides of him. I certainly didn't like it, because when I was playing with him, you then had to deal with like the 1v1s. But Glenn used to be with his arm in the air, offside. Yeah. And unfortunately, there were times where, it was fine, but there were times where he got caught out as well. But he was a real good footballer. I saw him actually a couple of years ago. He was with the LMA. He came down to St. George's Park and had a catch up with him there. And he's obviously it's good to see that he's got over obviously his issues as well, his health issues. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll wish him well. He was a great servant to the club, and stepped in as well, stepped into the breach to manage the club. He's and didn't disgrace himself, it has to be said. John Justice Allen says Martin must have been hard not to give Bellamy a clip round the ear when coaching him. Great player.
Great player, and I tell you what, because people had written about Bellamy, and people had said, and I know there it's been well documented issues, but I tell you what, he was one of the most demanding players during training. His demands on others, but actually on himself as well. Mm-hmm. And my experience of working with him was at the Olympics. Obviously, it was a major event, but his attitude was unbelievable. We didn't have any issues whatsoever. He threw himself into it, and he was a real talent. But that's probably why he was so good, is because he was always on the edge. And there's no doubt there'll be managers that would have liked to work with him, and there would have been other managers that would have had a problem handling him, because he was just on the line, really, of where he could step over it. But a great footballer, a great talent.
That kind of player as well, if you take that away from them, sometimes they lose something.
Maybe, yeah, I agree with you. He always on the edge, but I can only speak from my own experience, and he was absolutely outstanding in the Olympics in terms of his own application, but the demands he made on the other group as well.
Yeah, you'd rather have a Craig Bellamy in your team than
100%.
That's Kirk 99. He's talking about the game when Tinnion played in goal. He says we won 4-1. I went with my dad in the benches. I think that's what he means. Lee Foster says Brian Tinnion smacked me round the back of the head as a 10-year-old for running on the reserve game. Happy memories. Colin says, what was your most memorable experience at Newcastle?
Signing for them, first of all, signing permanent. Although I didn't play in the run-in for promotion, You know, I played 20 odd of the game, 23 games, I think, that year. So feeling part of it. Yeah, it was, I think, playing with those three or four world-class players, you know, it was an absolute joy, you know, and then, you know, you'd have to bring in Gaza into the equation as well. You know, so some outstanding individuals, you know, in Waddle, Peter, Kevin, Terry, Mark, and Gaza. Yeah, absolutely awesome.
Jason Carter says, can Martin tell us about his balls? There's the ones behind him. Do they have any significance?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's one or two up there from tournaments. Tournaments I've done with the under-21s, and yeah, there's one up there from my last game at Bristol Rovers. They gave me the match ball, which was very nice. I didn't score a hat trick, but I think it was a 0-0 against Oxford. But they signed the match ball for me, which was really nice. Yeah, got bits and pieces here. So
that's good. Somebody always asks the question. I'm going to get it in first. Have you kept any of your tops from Newcastle?
I have, yeah. Actually, Dave Sprout, who's he's based up in Blythe. When I was at Newcastle, I was looking for a book and it was called Shilton in Goal, and this was before eBay and Amazon and whatever. And I mentioned it to somebody, and they put it in the program. And Dave had this book, Shilton in Goal, and he wrote to me at the club and said, "I've got the book." So he sent me the book, and I sent him one of my jerseys.
Wow!
And then last year, through a friend of mine, Dave got in touch just to say, "Look, I've got one of your jerseys." So we've had a bit of a trade. He's given me back my jerseys, and I've given him a load of England gear. So if you see Dave walking around Blythe in England gear, then that's where he got it from.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we did a swap shop. So I've got my promotion shirt, from that. So I've just got the two. Yeah. And I got the Botafogo shirt from the Japan Cup finals, Steve, as well. So that's one for you, mate. Yeah, I've got the Botafogo shirt.
Send us a photograph of that, mate. I'll be happy. I just need to see it. Japan Cup's followed me around for years. Robbie Johnson says, I don't believe him either. He can't even spell in his blog. Was just wondering what your thoughts were. Yeah, I did notice he couldn't spell Guardian newspaper, Richard Keys. He's obviously writing it in a rush because he was that excited. John Justice Allen says, Martin, when Kevin Keegan arrived, you have to stay back after training to do extra shooting practice. And if so, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, and that was the role of the number 2 goalkeeper. You know, obviously Kevin, as I said, Kazi started in the team. So the number 2 goalkeeper that wasn't going to be playing, they would be the ones on the Thursday, you know, either after training or Thursday afternoon. And on sometimes a Friday morning, some of the lads would do finishing. And then, of course, from the February, when Kazi came back into the team, from the February till the end of the season, that was part of your role. But fantastic. A fantastic finisher, and I don't think Kevin was ever given enough credit in terms of technically. People always talked about him, what a fantastic personality, character, but he was a great technician as well. And to be honest, the finishing, which we used to do a lot with Willie McFall, used to take a lot of the finishing practices. The quality of when you've got a Pedro and a Waddler, you know, and obviously Kev, and as we know with Terry Mack, he liked to score a goal as well. So plenty of opportunity. Yeah, I'm not sure the training ground at Benwell mine was the best for it, because the areas were absolutely battered, and of course Coxey's rule: no tracksuit bottoms. So regardless of the weather, you weren't allowed to wear tracksuit bottoms. So as you can imagine, I had a few, I'd say grass burns, but they were more sand burns, because it was like Tynemouth Beach. It was.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think, the Benwell was the training facility for such a long time. It was so. I mean, we complain about what we've got up there now. I mean, well, yeah, what a mess.
Yeah, it was a wind machine as well there, because you're quite high up there and you're just off the West Road. So, if the wind was up, although we did have we had the indoor as such, the obviously the gym where we did have to spend a lot of time. Yeah.
Les Lumsden says if the takeover goes through, the owner should invest in Gateshead Stadium for the training facilities. That's a good shout, mate. Kirk says Bellamy's like everyone else, a product of his environment. Dan says how does Martin rate Dubravka against the keepers we've had at Newcastle over the years?
I think pound for pound, he's been Newcastle's best signing. I like him. Didn't know a lot about him before he came over. Obviously, I know Simon Smith really well from our time together, back in the early 80s. But also Simon spent 8 years at the FA, so we worked alongside one another. And he was maybe a little bit of a gamble, but oh wow, he's done brilliant. Because it's very hard for goalkeepers anyway to play at the very top end of the game, but the actual success rate of the foreign goalkeepers, if you look at all the data, there's been far more misses than hits, but he has been a hit. He's I like him. I think he's adapted really well, and I think he's part and parcel of why Newcastle where they are really.
Yeah, I agree. Colin Wilson says, Martin, I can see by your face how much you're enjoying this and chatting about your time at Newcastle. Top man. Paul, the comment came up earlier. I said, met you at Benwell in '86. Tom Dixon says, where did you coach at when you finished playing, Martin? Where were you coaching?
Yeah, I finished playing in. I left Birmingham in '93, so I went Newcastle, Birmingham. I played 18 months at Cheltenham, and at the same time as playing part-time at Cheltenham, I did all my coaching qualifications, and I started working at Lilleshall at the National School. Started working with the goalkeepers there, then started working with the international teams, and I was going into a couple of clubs. So I was going to Norwich, and then Trevor Francis offered me the opportunity to go back to Birmingham. So I was going in there a couple of days a week as well. And I did that until '98. And then in '98, I joined the FA full-time with Ray Clements, and I'm still there. So 22 years later, still at the FA.
Paul Davison sent us a tweet. He said, I scored 2 penalties against Martin when he made an appearance at Mark's Roman Catholic Primary School as Summers Fair. Honestly thought I would get snapped up by Newcastle after that, but it never happened.
Do we know where the school is?
Must be in Newcastle somewhere, I would imagine.
It's not. I remember going. Well, we went to a number of schools, but I remember doing a penalty prize in Leamington, which was only. I lived in Chapel Park, so it was literally 2 minutes down the road.
Right. Okay. Well, happy memories for the game. Never got picked up by Newcastle, so he obviously wasn't good enough. John Justice Allen says, "Who was the best finisher between Beardsley, Kevin Keegan, and Waddle when you were facing them in training?"
Definitely the most creative was Peter.
Yeah,
Peter. And even worse if you played in the gym, because when you get through 1v1 against you, he wouldn't try and score past you. He'd just play a 1-2 off the wall. Honestly, just whack it against the wall, play a 1-2. He was, in terms of probably power, Waddler, and definitely Kevin in terms of his all-round finishing is definitely heading and very good volleyer of the ball as well. Yeah.
Jason Carter says, did Martin secretly want Kevin Carr's silver shorts, or does he have his own to go with the shirt?
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately. But yeah, the old silver kit, it was, but I think if you had one now, you're sitting on a few quid, because I think they're quite sought after,
There's always a good story that Kevin tells about his shirts that he promised Peter Beardsley after the Auf Wiedersehen Kev game, his farewell game against against Liverpool. And he gave it to a police officer as he was getting a helicopter to hand to Peter. And of course, he never saw it again. The police officer.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it has ever turned up anywhere, but and the thing is, at that particular time, you had your shirts for the season. The following year, they went to the reserves, and you had a new set. So it's not like today. I think the lads today, they can basically, well, you see them swapping them left, right, and centre, don't you? You know.
Yeah, they get so many shirts these days, don't they? Probably get shirts to swap. Colin says, what are your views on the last 13 years, Mike Ashley and the takeover prospect? I mean, you must watch, fondly, the Newcastle results come in, like since you pay attention to your ex-clubs, especially one that you loved as Newcastle. Has it just saddened you, the way that they've...
Yeah, but it's... unfortunately, the club there's always something underlying there. And all you hope is that this in this particular case the deal can be done and it can be and start again. Obviously, I'm based down in Cardiff, so I don't get to see obviously all the media, but you don't want to see any club in turmoil, and you want all the discussions about football and not the politics of ownership and and who's sort of part and parcel of it. And it's it's a shame, and I hope they get it sorted out ASAP, and that's just so everyone can settle down.
I've said that for a long time, Martin. You quite rightly pointed out our history is full of disputes, either fans not liking the owner, owners upsetting the fans, and it's something that's almost ingrained in the history, because going back to the days of Lord Westwood, the fans didn't like him, they wanted him out. Seymour and McKee used of having the family silver, and of course you had the group come in and take over, and it was the battle for United, which you were obviously at, that was going on. And then of course we had that lovely period where John Hall seemed to be getting everything right, and then subsequently Abramovich comes in, changes the whole face of football. So John walks in because he knows he can't compete. We get Mike Ashley riding in, who looks as if he's going to be able to to save the day. And unfortunately, he's run the club properly, in the sense he's run it financially well, but he's run it to promote his own business globally, and that's what the fans, because we don't have the investment that we expected, and hopefully, as you say, this takeover will go through and we can start looking ahead to more positive days. Again, we spoke off air about Big Jack, and Jason asks, does Martin have any memories or stories about the late, great Big Jackie Charlton? And rest in peace, God bless him, because he's a big loss. I've watched a lot of the tributes today, Martin. Lovely to see his family come out and speak about him, and ex-players especially. What are your memories of Jack Charlton?
Yeah, when Arthur left in after promotion, obviously Jack was coming in. I'd never come across him before in terms of as obviously his coach, managing. First time I've ever worked with him. I have to say, very much like Arthur, said it as it was. I'll never forget. I don't know. I apologise if this story has been told on this type of event before, but my first experience with him, he did his press conference. He came up to Benwell. We were having our usual five-a-side, six-a-side anyway, but definitely a small pitch. And he stood, he had his cup of coffee, he had his cigar, and he watched. And he was probably 5-6 minutes in, shouted to Willie, get him in. So got it all together, walked over, and he said, I've been watching. He said, too much tippy-tappy. He said, too much tippy-tappy. He said, who's the best player? Do you know this story, Steve?
No, go on.
All right. And he said, who's the best player? And everybody went, Peter. He went, no. God's your best player, so start playing some 1-2s with him. He knew then things were going to change. And whatever, whether you agree with his football philosophy, the one thing with him, he knew exactly how he wanted to play. He knew how to build a team. and out to win games. And I'm really thankful for him, or to him, because he actually gave me the opportunity. I went out to Middlesbrough on loan, played about 5 games there, I think. And when I came back from Middlesbrough, he put me straight in the team, and I stayed there then for the next 4 seasons. So it was, he gave me my first opportunity, but an absolute legend, you know, in terms of, and all the tributes, and obviously, you know, condolences to Pat and his wife, and obviously John as well, who I got to know because John used to be at the club all the time, you know, when his dad was in charge.
He's got a bit of a reputation for getting names wrong. Was he that bad?
Yeah. Yeah. He used to look at me in Carsey, and I think he was one of the ones that couldn't work us out. And he used to go, and he'd point his finger, and you knew he'd go, Big Lead.
Yeah.
And then he'd go to, I don't know how he used to make George Riley and Tony Cunningham up, but he would go, and Big Lead. So, Big Lead, when you get the ball, look for the big lead and point at Peter and go, Little Lead. When the big lad gives it to the big lad, you get around the big lad. Okay? But yeah, Neil MacDonald was Gary MacDonald, because he had a Gary MacDonald in Middlesbrough.
Right.
Oh, he was brilliant. Yeah. We used to fish and chips in the Weatherby Whaler on the way back from games, you know. And Willie, fish and chips for the lads, book them for an hour. Used to take us in the pub. Used to have a couple of pints, and yeah, he was a man's man as well, you know. Absolutely top draw.
Fantastic to hear that. I mean, I know Joe Allen on the dinner circuit's told a few great stories about him. I've also heard stories about Malcolm Brown being a little bit nervous of him, because Malcolm obviously struggled a little bit with instructions, I believe. Is that a true story? And Jack showed him what to do.
Yeah, Jack had this thing, because he played 4-4-2. He always wanted his target man of a striker to play on the diagonal, which meant that when the fullbacks got it, rather than actually look to play to wide players or play into midfield, he used to say, just hit the diag, you know? And he rolled the ball for Malcolm, and Jack was in the way on the diag, but expected the ball to be hit, obviously, high on the diag. And as Malcolm up to strike it, he shanked it straight into Jack, straight into his nether region. And but he was unbelievable. He used to wear polyvelt shoes, which were, you'd have to Google them. Polyvelts had the biggest thick seam across the toe. And when people were passing, and he was going, look, this is what I want you to do. And he'd walk on in his civvies with his polyvelts, and he'd end up getting the ball rolled towards him, and he'd like hit the 30-yard diag in his polyvelts, you know. Wow. He was, sad day for football, but an absolute tribute to somebody who was so good for me.
Yeah, no, top man, and I think everyone's got a story about him, which is great. You know what I mean? Even people like yourself. I had a couple of stories which I shared with Lee Clark on Saturday when we paid tribute to Big Jack, and fantastic memories. Absolute legend of the game, and as you say, our thoughts are with Pat and the family at this awful time. Jeff asks, what's it like in the squad when an own goal goes in? But what's it like for a goalkeeper? Did you concede many own goals at Newcastle?
The classic against Wimbledon. John Fashion's overhead kick.
Yeah.
And it's gone over me. And I've obviously dived back to try and get it. It's hit the crossbar, back of the head, into the end, down the Gallagate end. And then Alan Cork scored, which he always reminds me of. And I think we got beat by Wimbledon 2-1. Would that have been Mirrors?
Game of the FA Cup 5th round.
Could it have been Mirrors' debut?
Mirandina, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Mirror debuted away to Norwich, and then
his home debut, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it might have been that game. But yeah, and they did show on Question the Sport, and Big Oggy from Cov was on, wasn't he? Steve Grizovic.
What happened next?
Yeah, what happened next? And he got it.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
John Ball used to play in goal for me at Felon, so he hired John. He says, Martin, how do you think you personally would have coped with the new style of goalkeeping being like a keeper with a lot more footwork involved? I mean, I suppose that's a good question, but how would you have coped with the fact you could pick the ball?
Yeah. Actually, even by Kazi's own admission, Kazi didn't have a right. He didn't have a right peg when you interviewed him. Steve, was saying, but I have to say, along with probably Moving Day, Moving Day, Nigel Spink, I think Kazi probably was one of the best passers of a ball, and I was not a long passer of a ball, but I could play with both feet. So would I be able to cope today? I'd like to think I'd be able to cope. Definitely pitches are better. Balls are certainly in terms of the contact. But the one thing that has changed, Steve, is the stadiums. I'll never forget, defending that Gallagher end when the gale force coming down from the Leazer's end. Sometimes for me, it was a real effort, to try and at times to even try and reach the halfway line. Kazi just made it look so easy, which made it probably even harder for me. Would I been able to cope? I think I probably would have, and I certainly would have worked at it, as I did. I did my best, but unfortunately, I was never a good a passer as Kazi. He was his left peg was a wand.
What was it like that first time stepping out onto St James's Park as Newcastle's goalkeeper?
Brilliant, yeah. Chef Wednesday at home. So it was. I'd signed till the end of the season, and Coxey said, "Look, I'm going to play you the last 3 games." So it was Barnsley away, which we won comfortably 5-0. We then played Sheffield Wednesday at home in front of what would have been pretty much close on a full house, I would have said. Where I think we won the game as well. I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely fantastic. And the last game was down at Wolves, where it was a celebration, but more for Wolves because they had won promotion. So there was hell of an atmosphere there. So I had, won at Barnsley, a 5-0 win, which, wow, first game. And then 2 matches with full houses and carnival atmosphere and everything that goes with it. It was, yeah. And it is a pressure to play there. But it's something that you've got to see it as a challenge rather than a pressure. And I loved it. I would have loved to stay there longer. But, once I came back from my injury, Dave was there. Dave Besson had been bought. Tommy Wright had come through. Gary Kelly was still there. And the reality is I probably wouldn't have played any more first-team football. So it was a sad day when I left. I think a sadder day for my wife. She absolutely loved the Northeast. And although we moved to the Midlands, probably took her a couple of years to settle in the Midlands. She absolutely loved Newcastle, and maybe being from a mining village in South Wales, she adapted to it. And yeah, she missed the Metro Centre, I'll tell you. Big time.
You mentioned Paul Gascoigne, of course. That was coming through the ranks when you were playing in the first team. Any stories about your young Gaza? Yeah,
I played in the game where he come on against, was it QPR, I think? An outstanding talent. If you look at him at 15, physiologically, just in terms of his shape, no upper body, wide hips, red legs they used to call him, because especially no tracksuit bottoms, so his legs were like a Liverpool shirt all the time, Yeah. And probably played 10 yards either side of the halfway line. But he went away that summer, worked so hard on his fitness. Upper body grew a little bit, got a bit stronger. But to me, Gaza, he was the best player I ever played with. And I played with a few good ends. You know, I had a time at Tottenham with Ozzy and Glenn Hoddle prior to joining Newcastle. And then the likes of the Four Musketeers we've talked about already. But Gaza was the best. And people I've been with at the FA, like Stuart Pearce and Gareth Southgate, both of those say exactly the same. Best player they've ever played with. And they have played with the best, haven't they? So, yeah, wow. Outstanding. And I did have a stint rooming with him as well, which, as you can imagine, was, he... I don't know why Willie asked me to room with him. Probably because I'm quite placid and not fazed by anything. But always sleep with, joking apart, always sleep with the light on, which I didn't have a problem with. Would find it hard, like, to settle down, but he was just excitable for the game, He's tremendous talent, and but for his knee injury, what would he have been? Because he did find it difficult coming back from the cruciate.
Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible injury, that. But great player. Some great memories there. Colin Wilson, you've started something now. He says, Polyvelts, I love them.
Somebody's Googled them, Steve.
Jason Carter says, we used to call Polyvelts pasties. I remember well.
Unbelievable.
It might start a new craze. You never know. Jeff
you reckon?
Might do. Is there a goalkeepers union, Mark?
100%. It's... I'm really fortunate in that I've never had a proper job in my life. I left school at 16 to play, then went into coaching, and obviously I'm 60, coming up 61 now. And still, all the goalkeepers that I played with, through the times now, and even all the young goalkeepers and the coaches now, I think we've all know how difficult it is, and I think we're always there, and we pretty. I think we try and support each other as best as we can, And I think we're. People say we're mad. People say we're crazy. I say, well, actually, we stand and wait for the ball to come to us, and you idiots run round after it. I said, so who's the crazy ones? I think I'd like to think we've got a bit more common sense, to be honest. But
brilliant. Kirk99 says, I remember a save you made from a corner against Spurs in the Cup. I think we got beat 1-0. Great agility. Yeah, that was the FA Cup game.
FA Cup, yeah. Disappointing, yeah. I remember especially for me, going back to Spurs, because I did have a stint there as number 2 to Ray Clements. Was never going to play in the first team there. So ended up playing just reserve team football, but went back there a few times with Newcastle, and we got heavily beaten one game. But we had a couple of decent results there. The cup game was 1-0. I think we drew 0-0 there as well, or maybe ones each.
12,000 that FA Cup game, and that was. I remember people on the day really concerned about the safety aspect, and that was prior to Hillsborough, because, as I say, there was at least 12,000 Newcastle fans down there. And crushing at the front next to the fences,
Yeah. So it was a disappointment, really, because we, just hoping, obviously, to get through the next round. Didn't probably one of the big disappointments in my career, in that I only ever got to the last 16. Was fortunate enough to get to Wembley, but with not full members, Leyland Daff with Birmingham, but. And I went there with the club for was it the Mercantile Credit or something?
1988, we beat Liverpool in the first game. Neil MacDonald penalty, and then I think we got beat against Burnley or something 2-0.
Yeah.
I've actually still got the record. I've got a tape recording of Charles Harrison's commentary of that, Martin.
Okay.
That was a win at Wembley.
Yeah. That was another one Willie said to me. Because I wasn't fit then. When was that? 88, Steve?
1988, the Mercantile Credit Trophy.
Yeah, I must have been out with my shoulder. And And that was another one. Willie said to me, "Do I fancy going away for the Wembley weekend?" I think Gary played then. Yeah, Gary Kelly.
Gary played. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, but doesn't usurp the Japan Cup for me, mate. We didn't win the Mercantile. Liverpool at Wembley though. That's why I kept the tape recording. I probably got it somewhere. Sean Foreman says, likewise, like Dubravka, you joined Newcastle first on loan and then permanently. Do you think going on loan helps?
Certainly, when I first went on loan, whether it be to Tottenham or whether going to Newcastle, it was I was the only way you could get first team football. But I think even now it's actually more important. So in terms of the young goalkeepers now, whether that's a Jordan or a Nick Pope or a Jack Butland or a Heaton or a Freddie, Freddie Woodman, you've got to play games, and the opportunity now to get out on loan, I would say whatever level it is, Dean Henderson, another good example, even if it means dropping down the pyramid, and playing in the conference, the benefit of the loan system, in my opinion, is immense. And it's no secret that all the lads now, Tommy Heaton as well, 5 or 6 goalkeepers, Ben Foster, if you want to, go back as far as Ben, they've all had opportunities to go out on loan and learn their trade, and it's an absolute must.
Yeah, Colin Wilson says one of the most comfiest shoes ever. Do you know what he's
talking about? not the Nike Tiempos, no.
Phil Wilson says, Martin, were you surprised that Dave Besson only stayed half a season at Newcastle?
Yeah. Obviously, club paid a lot of money for Dave, but it was that transitional period. We made a lot of signings that year.
Yeah.
I think Thorny, Glenn Hodges, John Robertson, I think, came that same time. And yeah, it just didn't, it didn't work out for him. But Dave went on to have a great career and played till he was 40. But sometimes that happens, maybe the wrong time, wrong place, 850,000 or whatever it was at that particular time, and, the team struggled and, that season got relegated. So, but, Dave got through it, went to Chelsea, had a bit of a sticky time there, but moved on and reinvented himself and then played till he was 40, so a credit to him, because you do need art as big as a dustbin to play at St. James's, and it takes a lot, especially when things aren't going well,
I've got the relegation video, and to be honest, it doesn't do him any favours. He gets chipped more times than any goalkeeper I've ever seen at St. James's Park, which is ludicrous when you look at the height of him. But it didn't work out for him, and that's the way it is, James says, what was the best atmosphere at a stadium that Martin remembers?
In terms of the club, probably I'll never forget the last game, the Liverpool game for KK, for Kevin, the farewell game. You might know, Steve, how many are knocking about, but I've actually got a video of that game.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. There was
it.
somebody filming it from the top of the tunnel.
Wow.
And I said to them before the game, I said, I obviously filming it, and he gave me his contact details. So I've got a copy of the whole event of the 90 minutes plus the afters.
Oh,
but, apparently there was, or the video, it's probably been copied a million times now, but the original videos, the fellow who filmed it only had authority to film it, not to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he had to take it off retail,
Yeah.
But I've got a copy of it, and it's great memory.
Jeff says, do you think keepers get a lot more protection these days?
100%. Yeah, I do. But I think all players do. It is a different game now, and unfortunately, I watch a lot of football now, and when I think of some of the old defenders that I played with, the likes of Ando and Kenny, just natural defenders, competitive. But now I look at defenders, and first thing people say is, how good are they on the ball?
Yeah.
You know, I'm wired differently. I want defenders who can defend, you know, and be competitive. And unfortunately, the game's a little bit different now, you know. So
Colin Wilson says, Martin, it's been a pleasure listening to you. Some great stories I've never heard, and I've heard a few. All the best. Please come back up when we are celebrating the takeover.
that
John,
would be good.
great crack from a great NUFC keeper. I can tell how much he loved the game. John says, top show again. Great to hear from Martin. Genuine love for the club. Good luck with whatever you're up to now. We'll give the last question to Jeff. He says, do keepers watch the game differently? A lot of time they're on the bench, of course.
Yeah. It's I certainly watch the game differently now. In my role at the FA, obviously, is coach education. So I'm massively into in terms of defending set plays, defending shapes, playing with a back three, playing with a back four. So I tend to watch a game now far more strategically than actually just going to watch a game of football, you know, because of my job. But I'm retiring in May the 1st, 2021. So then maybe I'll start going to games and maybe enjoying them a little bit more, you know. But yeah, it tends to be work for me at the moment.
I'll give Jason this one. He's asked a good question. Do modern balls improve the game or spoil it? I remember keepers back in the day catching the ball, diving full stretch. You never see that these days.
Yeah, the balls are definitely lighter. Definitely the makeup of the ball now, because it's glued, not stitched. So you do get a very smooth finish on it. And even with the best gloves, sometimes the balls, especially in wet conditions, aren't the best. And mainly that's why goalkeepers tend to be seen to be parrying more. It's a number of things. Movement of the ball, definitely how light the ball is. It tends to move late and basically playing no risk, so tending to parrying more than catching. But there's no more mitre multiplex anymore. Yeah,
I've got one in the loft. I managed to get one off Bobby Cowell's grandson. He kindly sold me one, which was from Cardiff City at home. Newcastle 4-0 in the 83-84 promotion season. Signed by both teams and substitutes. So you're on there. Gary Bennett's on, who used to play for Sunderland, of course, who was playing for Cardiff.
I played with Benno at Cardiff, yeah.
Yeah, but amazing. So last word to you, Martin. Any message you'd like to give the Newcastle fans who are watching and who will watch this video when it goes up live onto YouTube?
Good luck with the takeover. I think, you know, obviously as soon as that happens, the better. And just for me, just a big thank you, because fantastic part of our life, for myself and my wife. Love the Northeast. Don't get back up there as often as I'd like to, especially living in Cardiff now. But hopefully it won't be too long before I revisit. But no, just thanks very much for the club and the supporters and everything they did, because it's memorable.
All the comments are coming in are lovely, mate. Everyone's saying they've had a great time, loved the show, and passing on their best to you. Martin Thomas, been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Steve. Cheers.